Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel today. I'm going to be making a shaker. It's a shaker tag actually, and it's made of chipboard, and I've got this from Denise Boddey Designs. She cuts all of her own chipboard here in Adelaide, so nice local product. But I'm going to show you how I go about creating a finished product. So as I said, this is a chipboard tag and it's from Denise Boddey and it's called a Flower Shaker Tag number 1. It's DB469. I'll put a link in the description box to Denise's shop. I'm also going to use my scribble sticks to colour the flowers on these chipboard pieces. So we've got 4 frames actually. 3 frames have got flowers on them and 1 is just a plain frame. So I'm going to use those scribble sticks to colour the flowers on those 3 frames. There are lots of different ways to use your scribble sticks. I am just adding the crayon, I guess it is, it's like a crayon, to the chipboard, which I have already painted white with a white undercoat spray can. And I'm going to apply the colour and then use a wet brush to sort of smooth that out, and I'm going to apply a couple of layers where I want shading. Ideally you would use 2 shades of green, a light and a dark, but in this set I've only got 1 green that's suitable, so I'm just going to apply separate coats where I want them. And then I'm going to detail them later on to give them more colour and effect. So I'm going to do all of the leaves greens. I'm going to do 1 set of flowers in yellow, 1 set in blue and 1 in pink. So I'm going to use the same technique to apply all of the scribble stick colour. You'll find that during this video there's a lot of change of minds going on. I start doing one thing one way and change my mind about that, and then I use a paint that I think is going to be good, and then it doesn't do the job that I want it to do, so I change my mind about that. So during this video there is a lot of mind changing. I don't generally plan out my projects. I usually just go by the seat of my pants, and this is what happens when you're videoing and you haven't really got a plan. So here is the first of my change of hearts. I'm going to use this metallic paint to paint the frames. I was looking for like an antique gold frame for my shaker, but when I actually applied this paint it was very spotchy and didn't give a very good coverage at all. So I changed my mind about that and had to look for another paint to use. Mind you, the paint that I'm using is from my ceramic days, and that would have to be at least 30 years ago, so I've done pretty well to last this long. I think I've got about 5 drawers full of them, but I do use them, and most of the time they're fine, but for some reason this one didn't work that well. So I ended up choosing another one which is still the same age as this one that I'm using here, and yet it had a better coverage. So anyway, that's what I went with. So I'm going for a metallic frame for my shaker. So you can see here I've got my antique gold frames all sorted, and I decided to come in with a darker scribble stick and shade my flowers. This wasn't successful either, so this is another change of heart. When I wet the scribble stick to activate it, it's just blended in with the yellow that was already there, so I gave up on that idea, thought of something different to do so that it could have more detail. I also tried using the straight brush to scribble stick technique on this one. So you wet your brush and you just rub that on your scribble stick and you get the pigment off that way. And that did work a bit better, but not as good as I had hoped. So to get the detail in, I ended up choosing a Art Studio permanent marker. This is a 0.4 nib size, and it's as I said, a black permanent marker, and I'm going to use that to draw the detail into my flowers and leaves. That way I know it's going to stay on there because it's permanent. It'll stay on there even no matter what I do to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all 3 panels. I have to say that this pen did a great job, and sometimes when you're using a pen over a waxy sort of surface it can clog up, but this one worked very well. So this is how my frames are looking at the moment, now that I've got my colour on them. So now I'm going to add a bit of sparkle to my frames, and I'm going to use this Glimmermist. It's called Iridescent Gold. I've got an old box that I received some product in some time ago. I use that as a little bit of a spray booth so that the spray doesn't go everywhere. I give them a fairly liberal coat and then I set them aside to dry. Now I'm going to cover the back section of the shaker tag. Now this is chipboard as well, but it's a solid piece, and my frames that I've just been working on are going to sit on top of this. So I've decided to use some of the Denise Boddey design paper in the Elegance range, and I'm just adding some of my art glitter glue to the chipboard background, and then I'll attach the pattern paper to it and then trim that down. When I trimmed it down, I did tear a little piece of the pattern paper on the outside edge of the tag back, but I'm not real worried about that because the frame that I'm going to place over the top will cover that up, I'm pretty sure. Now, to get the edges around my tag nice and smooth and fitting properly so that they don't overhang at all, I'm using an emery board and just filing around the edge of it, and that sort of takes any overhang off and gives it a nice finish. Once I've finished that, I'm going to use my inking tool and my vintage photo ink and just ink around the edge of the panel. Now I'm going to cut the acetate to make the front of my shaker. I have measured my tag and now I'm cutting the acetate so that it's approximately the size that I'm after. I will attach this to my frame using art glitter glue, and then I will trim around it to get a better fit, especially around that top section. I am from a stationery background. I used to own a stationery store, and what I'm using here is actually overhead projector transparencies. It's not acetate as we purchase it in the scrapbooking industry, but it does exactly the same job, and I'm sure that everybody can get hold of some overhead transparencies without too much trouble. Now I'm going to use my art glitter glue to attach those 3 frames with the flowers on them on top of each other. I find that the art glitter glue works fine for this sort of thing. As far as attaching transparencies is concerned, I'm a bit unsure about that. And also working with the liquid glue on transparency is also a bit of a hit and miss affair. But anyway, I'm going with that, and I found that the chipboard stuck just fine with the art glitter glue. I also stuck the top layer or the top frame on as well. That's the one with the transparency on it. Once the paper was dry on my background, I had to cut the hole out that's at the top of the tag. Now, this was a bit of a trial and error thing as well. I've never tried doing this before, so it was a bit of a learning curve trying to work out how to actually cut that out without too much hassle. So if you've got a good system for that, I'd love to hear it. If you leave it in the comments, I'm bound to read it. What I ended up doing was cutting it out roughly and then using some fine sandpaper to sand around the hole to smooth off the edges of the paper. This could also have been very disastrous, but I managed to get away with it. This is where I had a look and wondered whether I wanted to have the pattern paper behind the floral chipboard or whether I would prefer to have it on a plain background. I decided that I wanted to have a plain background, so I got out some white acrylic paint and gave the background of the back of the tag a coat of white paint. Of course, plain white wasn't good enough, so I dug out some white pearl paint, so this was going to give it a nice sheen, except that this was also another old paint, and when I was applying it I realised that it had lumps in it, which of course is not something that you want. So anyway, I persevered with it and I gave it the coat of pearl paint and scraped off all of the lumps. In point of actual fact, what I did was I gave it the coat of paint and then I let it dry and then I rubbed the lumps off. So they came off quite easily. So after all of that, I had another look at it and I decided I liked the pattern paper behind the chipboard better. So now I'm going to add the glitter to the shaker. So I couldn't decide what glitter to use. I wanted to go for something that had some colour but wasn't too overpowering, and in the end what I got was something that with a lot of colour that is quite overpowering. But anyway, that's what I've got. I've got a mixture of colours here. The glitter came from my mum. She had a clean out of her crafting stuff, and I got a lot of stuff, so the glitter came from her. It's darker than I actually thought it was going to be honest. It's still, in my opinion, a bit too dark. So yeah, I wish I had have went for something a bit lighter, but it's in there now, so we can't do much about that apart from pulling it apart and starting again. So I'm going to go with the, it's sort of like a brownie. It's got all sorts of colours in it, to be honest, all sorts of colours. So it's quite a nice glitter. And I'm actually putting some glue behind those chipboard flowers as well, so that the glitter doesn't get stuck down there too much. So I'm going to use the art glitter glue to attach that frame to the tag back. Now I'm going to use that gold paint and go around the outside edge of the tag and all of the layers and give that a nice coat so that it's a solid gold. Now I'm going to work on the back of the tag, cover up all that nice painting I did back there. So all of the designer papers from Denise Boddey have that strip along the bottom, and on the back of that there's a pattern. So I've used all of those strips that I've cut off at various times and added them to a sheet of A4 normal copier paper to make a pattern paper, and I'm going to use that to attach to the back of my tag. Once again, I'm using my art glitter glue to attach the paper to the chipboard. I used exactly the same procedure as I used to attach the pattern paper to the front of the tag. So glue, cut it with my scissors, filed it with my file, and then inked around the edge of it. I did notice that some of the little pieces came adrift, so I needed to re-stick those as I went. Now the tag looks lovely as it is, but I decided to add a few embellishments to it. So I'm using a piece of Denise Boddey chipboard called Swirly Doodads, and I'm going to use my hot glue gun I've inked around the edge of these. Once again, these have been sprayed white with the white pressure pack undercoat, and I'm just attaching one piece to the top of the card tag and one piece to the bottom. I also have this moth that I have fussy cut from Denise's Cogs of Time paper range, and I'm going to attach that just to the top left hand corner of the tag. So I also have this Craft Barn die. It's called Flower Background, and I've cut that from some white cardstock, and I'm going to use that on the back. I'm going to ink around the edge of it before I attach it to the back of the card. I'm also going to attach one moth and one butterfly that I will cut from the same paper range as the previous moth. I'm going to use some lace to thread through the hole at the top of the tag, so I thought that I would make a lace ruffle on my sewing machine. So I just gather up the lace as I stitch. I've used a zigzag stitch, I think, and I'm adding that to the back of the tag just with a row of art glitter glue, and just attach that to it. Art glitter glue is great for fabric as well. You could use Fabri-Tac or something like that if you wanted to, but I found that art glitter glue works fine for fabrics where I use it. And then I've cut some two more strips that are about the same width. They're about, I don't know, probably 1.5 inches wide, and I'm going to thread those through the hole and tie a knot or a double knot with them to keep them in place at the top of the tag. I really like using the all over lace as the tie at the top of the tag because it's soft and floppy and it just feels nice. So that's my project for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. The link to all of the products that I've used will be in the description box below. Well, the ones that I can find, that is. The glitter and things like that I got from Mum won't be in there, but anything that I can find that is in this video will be there. So thank you for being here with me today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you can join me when I post my next video. Don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, please click that subscribe button. Bye.